New Tuvalu government reaffirms relationship with Taiwan. Haiti orders nightly curfew trying to restore peace. North Korean factories making arms for Russia. Cuba asks UN for help as food shortages worsen. Malaysia may renew hunt for missing flight MH370. Taylor Swift deal overshadows diplomacy at Asia summit.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Wednesday, March 6th, and here are your top stories. Tuvalu's new government has reaffirmed its relations with Taiwan after last month's election. Tuvalu's government said in a statement, adding that it wants dialogue with Australia over a security pact signed last year. The statement said the new government wishes to reaffirm its commitment to the long-term and lasting special relationship between Tuvalu and the Republic of China, Taiwan. Former Attorney General and Fisheries official Funday was elected Prime Minister on Monday after a January election closely watched by Taiwan, China, the United States, and Australia, amid a geopolitical tussle for influence in the South Pacific.
Tuvalu, a Pacific island nation of about 11,200, is one of three remaining Pacific allies of Taiwan after Nauru cut ties last month and switched to Beijing, which had promised more development help. The document, titled a Statement of Priorities for the New Government, also supported the principles of a security and migration pact called the Falapili Union signed with Australia in November, though it acknowledged transparency concerns around the deal. The agreement allows for up to 280 people a year to migrate from Tuvalu. It faced criticism for a section allowing Australia to vet the country's security arrangements. Simon Kofe, Tuvalu's Minister of Transport, Energy, Communication and Innovation, called for it to be renegotiated in December.
Authorities have ordered a nighttime curfew in an attempt to regain control of Haiti streets after an explosion of violence during the weekend, including gunmen from gangs overrunning the country's two biggest prisons and freeing their inmates. A 72-hour state of emergency began Sunday night, and the government said it was set out to find the killers, kidnappers, and other violent criminals that it reported escaped from prison. The emergency decree was issued after a deadly weekend that marked a new low in Haiti's downward spiral of violence.
At least 9 people had been killed since Thursday, 4 of them police officers, as gangs stepped up coordinated attacks on state institutions in Port-au-Prince, including the country's international airport and the National Soccer Stadium. But the attack on the National Penitentiary late Saturday was a big shock Haitians, even though they are accustomed to living under the constant threat of violence. Almost all of the estimated 4,000 inmates escaped, leaving the normally overcrowded prison eerily empty Sunday with no guards in sight and plastic sandals, clothing and furniture strewn across the concrete patio. 3 bodies with gunshot wounds lay at the prison entrance. In another neighborhood, the bloodied corpses of 2 men with their hands tied behind their backs lay face down as residents walked past roadblocks set up with burning tires.
According to South Korea's defense minister, North Korea's munitions factories are operating at full capacity to produce weapons and shells for Russia as Moscow's devastating war in Ukraine grinds into a 3rd year. The latest estimate from South Korea offers fresh clues on the crucial but highly secretive role North Korea is playing to help resupply Moscow's war of attrition at a time when Ukraine's own need for a vital military resupplies is being held up by predominantly Republican lawmakers in Washington. The weapons and military equipment, which included millions of rounds of artillery shells, are being delivered to Russia in exchange for shipments of food and other necessities.
According to Shin's ministry, Pyongyang has shipped about 6,700 containers to Russia since August, which could accommodate more than 3 million rounds of 152mm artillery shells or more than 500,000 rounds of 122mm multiple rocket launchers. Shin said in a meeting with reporters, while North Korea's arms factories, for non-Russian exports, operate at 30% capacity due to shortages of raw materials and electricity, the factories producing weapons and artillery shells for Russia are operating at full capacity. According to the Defense Ministry, in exchange, food accounts for the largest portion of containers from Russia to North Korea, and the food supply situation in the isolated Asian nation seems to be stable.
Cuba's government has for the first time asked the UN's food program for help as food shortages on the communist-run island worsen. The World Food Program said it had received an unprecedented official request from the Cuban government for help providing powdered milk to children under 7 years of age. The request is a sign of the seriousness of Cuba's economic crisis. As well as a shortage of milk, fuel and medicines are also running low. Powdered milk and other basic foods are provided to Cubans at a subsidized price through ration books, but delays and lack of supplies are common, especially at times of economic hardship.
The system was first introduced in 1962 by Cuban leader Fidel Castro after the United States imposed sanctions on the island, which exacerbated shortages. The Cuban government continues to blame the ongoing U.S. sanctions for the dire state of its economy, but critics say government mismanagement is behind the current economic crisis, the worst in 3 decades. Last year, Vice Prime Minister Jorge Luis Tapia Fonseca did concede that progress in making Cuba more self-sufficient was lagging and blamed Cuban workers, whom he said lacked a culture of productivity. Shortages of milk have become worse since, with Interior Commerce Minister Betsy Diaz warning earlier this month that deliveries for children aged between 6 months and 2 years had been delayed.
Malaysia's government said Sunday it may renew the hunt for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 after a U.S. technology firm proposed a fresh search in the southern Indian Ocean, where the plane is believed to have crashed a decade ago. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said Texas-based Ocean Infinity has proposed another no-find, no-feed basis to scour the seabeds, expanding from the site where it first searched in 2018. He said he has invited the company to meet him to evaluate new scientific evidence it has to find the plane's final resting place.
At a remembrance event for the missing passengers today, Malaysia's transport minister says the government is hoping to renew the search for the missing plane.
If the evidence is credible, he said, he will seek cabinet's approval to sign a new contract with Ocean Infinity to resume the search. Loke told a remembrance event to mark the 10th anniversary of the disappearance of the jet. The government is steadfast in our resolve to locate MH370. We really hope the search can find the plane and provide truth to the next of kin. The Boeing 777 plane carrying 239 people, mostly Chinese nationals, from the Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur, to Beijing, vanished from radar shortly after taking off on March 8, 2014. Satellite data showed the plane deviated from its flight path and was believed to have crashed in the southern Indian Ocean. But an expensive multinational government search failed to turn up any clues, although several pieces of debris washed ashore on the East African coast and Indian Ocean islands. A private search in 2018 by Ocean Infinity also found nothing, but the tragedy sparked moves to bolster aviation safety.
Taylor Swift stole the show at an Asian summit Tuesday when Singapore's leader defended his tiny country's lucrative concert deal that could cause bad blood with neighboring nations. Singapore is a key member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, a 10-nation bloc known as ASEAN. Its 3-day summit was expected to focus on member Myanmar's humanitarian crisis and conflicts in the South China Sea. Instead, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong was grilled on the summit's sidelines about an exclusive deal his city-state struck with Taylor Swift that prevents the singer from taking her Eras tour to any other stop in Southeast Asia.
A deal was reached, and so it has turned out to be a very successful arrangement. I don't see that as...
Swift is performing 6 concerts from March 2nd to 9 in Singapore, and some Southeast Asian neighbors complain that the Singapore deal deprives them of the tourism boom her concerts bring to hosts. Her Eras tour shattered records when it reportedly surpassed $1 billion last year, and her film adaptation of the tour quickly took #1 at the box office and became the highest-grossing concert film to date. The Singaporean leader confirmed Tuesday that Swift was provided with certain incentives in exchange for making Singapore her only Southeast Asian destination on her Eras tour. Other questions at the news conference covered increasing tensions in the South China Sea, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and the likelihood of China joining in a regional free trade pact.
The answer for yesterday was A, jubilant. Ferdinand was jubilant after making an impressive comeback from a month on the injured list. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of Malaysia may renew hunt for a missing flight MH370. Number 1, remembrance, 纪念, 记忆, 回忆. A service was held in remembrance of local soldiers killed in the war. Number 2, steadfast, 坚定的，不动摇的。He remained steadfast in his determination to bring the killers to justice. Number 3, deviate, 背离，偏离，违背。The bus had to deviate from its usual route because of a road closure. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comments section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.